Welcome back to another episode of the School of Why podcast. We have a very exciting guest with us today, Miss Kerry Siggins. How are you, Kerry?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, me too. I met Kerry not that long ago with Three Ring Circus. Her and I are both on the journey of getting more serious about our keynote talks, and we also share the same publisher. And I know you're working on a book. Is that right?
That's right. Not quite ready yet, but
Are you ready to
sometime
say
in the
the
next
name?
12 months.
Are you allowed to say
uh,
the name?
I don't know. I'm not ready for it yet.
Okay,
We're
gotcha.
debating.
Yeah, I know. I've been
Lauren
there.
and I
Look,
are debating.
yes, people don't realize that about books that like a lot of times you get really far down the road before you have a name. I had
Yeah.
the same. I rewrote mine first one two or three times before we came up with the Art of Why, and then I had a couple of ideas for this new one, Breaking Why, that came out in February, which was with Amplify Publishing, and it wasn't until really towards the end that we really settled on Breaking Why, and then we had to kind of like work that back into the some of the narrative, but it was all pretty much there because we realized like the whole art of when it comes to like trying to accomplish your purpose and passion, it's not really an art so much. It's more of like a breaking down
Brute
process.
force.
Yeah, which is actually kind of I think, it's interesting. A lot of our stories, our content, our books and our talks, they all kind of come down to a similar experience. We all kind of are going through life. I know you're a businesswoman, entrepreneur, and many other things. And you've talked a lot about this idea of how to turn flaws into superpowers. And in my book, I've got how to turn failures into opportunities. And sometimes we can look at ourselves and our characteristics as like a flaw. Tell us a little bit about what do you mean by turning flaws into superpowers, and what do you think flaws are?
Yeah. Well, I have turned my biggest flaw into what I think is my superpower, but it almost destroyed me. So we can talk a little bit about that. But I think your flaws are, the biggest things that you don't like about yourself, the way that you show up, that maybe doesn't build connection, builds relationships. It's the things that trigger you, especially when you don't fully understand those triggers, and it makes you show up in a way that can be difficult, that can trip you up, that can cause you to be your own worst enemy. But if you do the work and understand your flaws and understand those triggers, understand why you make some of the decisions that you make, you can really turn that flaw around and use it for bettering the world, for making an impact. But you have to be really intentional about that, and you have to really understand what that flaw is.
Interesting. Okay, so obviously you volunteered to be on the show. So tell us one of your flaws that you turned into a superpower.
All right. So my biggest flaw is a very deep need to be recognized, to be seen. And I
Mhm.
think, a lot of that stems from one, my personality. Like, I'm not going to blame all of it on circumstance, but I certainly grew up in a situation where I wasn't always seen. My dad left when I was 4, and
Mhm.
I was always trying to prove myself. And as I, got into that habit of trying to please people, be what people I thought people wanted me to be, get my dad's attention, make sure I was seen as successful, it led to really destructive behaviors. And then I was doing things for
Wow.
attention, doing things to be seen. Maybe manipulating a situation because I wanted people to view me in a certain way,
Mhm.
and it was incredibly destructive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how much what happens to us as a kid influences what we
Yeah.
do for work. Mine was a little different. So I grew up. My parents chose to be in inner city missions and run homeless shelters. And what obviously comes with that is you're kind of in poverty. You're not homeless, but you're in poverty with those people because it's not exactly a high paying job. And that caused a ton of tension and stress in my family. And I remember growing up thinking, I'm never going to be poor. That was like my big MO. And, that's a great idea. And there's nothing wrong with that. But so many destructive things can come from that being like your purpose. if
Yeah.
your only purpose is just to make dad proud or to make a bunch of money, like some weird stuff's gonna happen.
But
And I guess that's part of your story then, huh?
that's putting it mildly.
Yeah, right. Because I didn't you tell me you were so yeah you I mean you didn't you become CEO at 28 or something like
I
that?
did. Yeah, I was really young, and it was actually it's a really interesting story. So, I live in Durango, Colorado, which is a rural town, western Colorado, absolutely beautiful on the very southern tip of the Rockies, and I moved here actually in 2006 after I overdosed,
Okay.
and
Oh,
and
didn't tell me
so
that.
yeah,
You didn't
yeah.
tell
So
me
I
that.
had
Did
a
you know that I've actually got 14 years under my belt?
no, I didn't know that
Sober,
about you
drugs and
either.
alcohol?
No,
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
just got my 14-year tip.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That's amazing. Yep. I'm on like
Mine was
8.
2008. So,
Yeah. No,
okay,
I'm
so
on
oh 06.
2008. So that 2008 with 2000 I've been clean since 2008. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
So that, but okay, so I kind of cut you off, but I
No,
didn't
it's
know that
fine.
about your story. Sorry. So you
That's okay.
you
I
had
know
your
we had to
first
connect. We
overdose.
had to connect on that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. That's great. You didn't even know.
Yeah.
So that's part of my story too. So you overdosed in 2006,
Yep.
which is interesting. So how old were you at that point?
27. I was just about 28. And
Okay.
so I nursed myself through it. I didn't call anyone because I was like there was no way anybody was going to see me on the floor of my apartment, but
And this
I
is why
made
you're
it.
in business, right?
This is why I'm in business. So
No, but
I
no, but you were in business
oh
back
yeah,
then.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. It was
You were
had
going
a
hard.
very
Yeah, see,
successful
that's
sales
why
career.
yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
you were self-medicating like me.
Totally. Living a dual
Yeah,
life,
okay.
like living a life of I'm really successful, I'm
Wow.
achieving, I'm
Yes.
doing all of these things, but I had this pretty serious drug addiction for, for 5 or 6 years before it all came crashing down. And as I laid there on the floor of my apartment, I I wasn't almost dying that changed it for me. It was the fact that I could not go to work for 3 days. I couldn't get out of bed. And I defined myself by my work ethic, and it didn't matter how messed up
Yep.
I was. You play hard, you work hard, you go to work.
That's it.
And I couldn't. And that was it. That was when I called my mom and
Wow.
I said, I got to come home. I'm meant to do much bigger things than what I'm doing. And I need to fix this. And so I packed up my belongings. 6 weeks later, I was in Durango and I had just turned 28. It was right before my 28th birthday that this happened. And I applied for a job at Stone Age, and the two founders decided to take a risk and hire me. So I overdosed on Labor Day of 2006, and I was starting to learn how to run a company on January 2nd, 2007, which is a crazy
Yes.
story. It like blows me
Yeah, and
away.
you
But
just said you got sober in 2008, which means that you weren't quite done, right? Like
no,
using
it
some
takes a little
some of
while.
those
And
superpowers.
I didn't go to rehab. I know I decided I was going to do it on my own,
Hmm.
and living with my mom and really being able to pour myself into figuring out how to run a company and be a leader was really good. It gave me something to put my intensity into.
That actually
But
helped you a
it was
bit.
still up and down for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, what a roller coaster. And so you talk about radical transparency. Is that similar to rigorous honesty?
Yeah, I would say it's very close to that. Uh, I mean, what is it? What do they say in AA, right? Your darkest, what is it? Your darkest, you're only as good as your darkest secret, or something like that along the lines. Like
Something
you're
like that.
you're
Always
sick. You're
dark
only
before the
you're
dawn.
sick as your darkest secret,
Yeah.
and
All I know is that secrets definitely kill you. Your secrets
exactly.
will kill you. Or
And
the secrets
so
will keep you sick. There's all kinds of fun stuff.
there you go. So that whole philosophy.
Not that I know anything about that organization.
So yeah, so that resonates with me, and so as I talk about this whole idea of flawed leadership and embracing your flaws to turn it into superpower, you cannot do that unless you are radically transparent, and
Mm,
you
totally.
say like, this is who I am, and these are the things that I've done, and I'm not proud of them, but I'm going to forgive myself, and I'm going to use it to propel me forward. But if you keep those things secret, then you can't use it as power, as fuel, at least from yourself. You don't have to tell the whole entire world, like I do, but I believe that you do have to.
You and me both.
I,
You don't have to be
I
that
do.
radical if you don't want to, guys. If you're out there listening,
No,
you don't have to have a podcast and write a book and go around talking about it. But
you
if you
don't.
want to, it actually is pretty cool.
It is, and I
knock it
think it
out.
really resonates with people, but you gotta be honest with yourself. You gotta be
That's right.
honest with the people who you're close to, your family, people who you love,
Mhm.
because that's, that's we're here for a greater purpose than that, and that radical transparency helps us, fuel ourselves to turn those things that we're ashamed of into something that we can be proud of.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me how I can meet somebody for the first time and basically have had such a similar experience.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, and I look for those things. I've had some of the other people on the show, Sarah, John, and
Yeah.
I'm just amazed at how much the way I know something is true, right? And it's very, very, very true. And there's not tons of things that you can say for sure are true in this world,
Right.
or that I know for sure, right? But when you see people that are from all these different walks of life and they come together, I've been to 40 countries, and when you see things that are the same and it's consistent, it's not a ton of things, but those things that are consistent, those are truth.
Yeah.
Right? Those are principles that are undeniable. Like you're using some slightly different words than I may have used in some of my stories. We come from a different background, and yet we're finding the exact same truth. And there's something to be said about that. When you keep hearing the same thing over and over again from people that are really passionate about being authentic. So I talk a lot about being authentic and the idea of authentic success, which is not just obviously driven by money, and you've put yourself out there. You're very transparent, more so. So I sold my company in December. I don't know, at least if your social media is true, which I got to believe it is. You seem like even more of an authentic leader than even I was when I was running my company before I sold it. I always struggled with that. I wanted to be, but I was like, I still wanted to, didn't know how to bring
Yeah.
in my employees and staff all the way into my full blown passion and purpose. And the book, I don't know if it's because I was too nervous. If I got them so inspired, they would quit. Um, but I don't know. Tell me about that. How do you help others find their voices? Do you do that at work? And what does that look like? So to be radically transparent.
Yeah, definitely. So when I first told my team my story, I was really scared too. I was just, coming into being sober, being clean, and
Hmm.
we were having a team building session and talking about, vulnerability, sharing vulnerable stories. And so when I finally just said, I'm just going to say this, I'm just going to tell people. And so I blurted out my story and I went into detail and I started crying and everybody in the room was crying. And I realized that there was this ability to create this deep, profound connection. And then other people started opening up and telling their stories, and some really, really profound things came out. We learned so much about each other. And that's when I realized, oh my God, when I talk about this, when we talk about vulnerabilities and our deepest fears, we connect with people because, like you were saying, we're not all that different. Our stories are what make our journey unique, but, many, many, many of us are walking, similar paths. And so when you are brave enough to share that story, then it encourages others. And so through my storytelling, I've learned how to not tell my story and be able to, still inspire people to share theirs, to pull on the threads of their stories so they feel more comfortable showing up as their authentic selves and being honest about who they really are.
I love that. And I'm assuming that's how you really focus creating your culture
Yeah. Oh yeah.
at your at, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Stone Age, we are a radically transparent company. We're an employee owned company. And so we
Interesting.
share
And how
this,
does that work exactly? Like, so it's
uh,
like basically profit sharing and things like
it,
that?
no, it's ownership. So we're what's called an ESOP, employee
Oh,
stock ownership plan. And so that company, the
but it's
employees.
private, right? Private
Well, it's
company.
private, but it's an ESOP, so it's like a private structure, but instead a trust owns it instead of individuals,
Okay,
and then the
cool.
board oversees that trust. So I'm on the board that oversees that trust, and then the employees are participants in the trust and have ownership in the company. So we're 100% employee owned. The
Wow, that's
founders
really
are
cool.
have sold out, and so I run an employee owned company, and so our
Was
goal.
that your choice to create that, or was that already there with the founders?
So they had an employee ownership structure in place,
Hmm.
but it wasn't an ESOP. And so it was
Okay.
skin in the game. Employees could invest in the company. And then we started buying and selling over $1 million worth of stock every year. So we were going to have to file with the SEC and start having accredited investors. And it was just going to really damper what we were trying to do with broad ownership. And so I approached the founders and said, hey, we've got to have a more sustainable model. You're approaching your 70s. Let's either do a management buyout or an ESOP. And we decided that broad ownership was what we wanted. And so we formed the ESOP trust and, transitioned into an ESOP in 2015.
Nice. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I think that. And how many employees do you guys have now?
We've got about 165 worldwide. So not
Wow,
huge, but making a big impact on 165 people's lives. That's for sure. Yeah.
I love it. That's so cool. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, tell me. I guess the other thing that I've been curious about, you're getting into this space where you want to go beyond just your company
Yeah.
to share your story and be a thought leader. What was it that made you, decide that that was where you wanted to go with this? And what's kind of
Yeah.
your why behind that?
Sure. I'll tell you a crazy story.
Hmm.
So
Good.
I've always been a writer. I've loved writing. I went to engineering school because my dad told me I wasn't smart enough to go to engineering school, but I always loved writing and speaking.
By the
I gave
way,
my
did you? I have to ask. Did you
uh-huh.
did you making CEO at 28 get your dad's attention like you wanted?
Oh no, he's never even said
No.
he's proud of me. No, no, no,
Oh,
no.
that shit never
Yeah,
works.
I didn't do. I wasn't
I don't guess
CEO.
he's. Do you think he's
Yeah.
gonna watch this? I mean, do you think
Oh,
this
I
will
doubt
inspire
it.
him? Probably not. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah. Well, the good news is you were CEO at 28, and a lot of great stuff's happening. You've been making
Exactly. It's
progress.
all good.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Thank
If it makes you
you.
feel any
Thank
better,
you. Thank you. I've worked
I
through
am
I've
proud of
worked
you.
through the dad issues at this point in my life, but
Right? Yeah, that's part of the deal.
yeah.
All right. Tell me your fun story.
All right, so full circle. So writer. I love speaking. Went to engineering school to prove my dad wrong. I did my first public speaking event in front of a couple thousand people with like a day's notice. Somebody had canceled, and my softball coach, I played softball at Colorado School of Mines, asked, "Hey, will you give this keynote? You're such a great leader." And I said yes, and that's when I fell in love with it. And so I've always had this thread of being on stage, writing. That's my passion. And
Hmm.
then I, went into business and leadership, and I was feeling really disconnected from my creative side. When you're a CEO, you don't create tangible work product. And so I was trying to figure out like how do I get back to that creative passion? And so I was out for a run. I live like literally in the mountains and walked out my back door onto a trail. And I was listening to some book, and it was talking about, and I was figuring out how I wanted to speak more. And it said, if you really want to get back to, your passion and figure out what your path is, go back to your roots. And I said,
Yes.
I need to write a
Oh my
book. I need
God.
to
Yes.
write. So as
Mm.
I said this, I'm not kidding you. Literally, like 150 rabbits appear out of nowhere. There are rabbits, like it was the
Which is
craziest
basically
thing.
one family,
Like a
if anything.
sign, right? Of you need to
One
go do
rabbit.
this. Totally.
Wow,
And
150
so
rabbits.
150, it was crazy.
Same.
I literally the only time that something like that has ever happened, and I was like, okay, I'm paying attention.
Fine.
And so that afternoon, I went home and I
I get it.
made. I started and built my own website off of Weebly, and I was like, well, if I'm going to write a book, I better start practicing. So I
There
started
you
my
go.
blog in 2015, and here we are.
Man, I love that. And you just nailed my entire thesis on passion. So when I wrote my first book, it was mainly about purpose. And I realized there was something missing to it. And that this second book touches a lot more on the concept of passion. Because I believe if you put passion and purpose together, you end up with massive profits. And
Yeah,
those profits are not just money, obviously, but the things you cannot buy. More time, someone's life that's been changed, your life that's been changed,
yeah,
happiness, freedom, joy, peace. These are things you can't buy. But I believe, and I'm actually working on my third book. It's called Love the Weird, and Love the Weird is actually about the weird kid. So you said roots, basically that kid that we were before we were letting anyone down.
yeah,
Maybe it's dad, maybe it's mom, maybe it's someone at school, or the just in general an idea of what society expects. But basically, before it was weird for me to be an astronaut, inventor, inventing things that like you're clearly not going to make. Like a, I made time machines. I made hoverboards. I even have a hoverboard in the office. The first one I made, which clearly never flew, which is you know why you haven't heard of me. But but anyway, all that stuff is crazy, right? That's weird. Go
Yeah.
outside and play or do something else. And I'm like inside, I was turning every room in the house into a lab, and then when I wasn't doing that, I was like trying to be like a TV preacher. And other times it's like we're gonna go to the moon. And then when I wasn't doing that, I was like, okay, cool, I'll go outside. I want to be a cowboy. And I did tons of work as an adult to really like hack,
Yeah.
excuse me, my passion. And it's one of those things where it wasn't until I really was able to re-embrace, and I was like 35 when I did this. So this is like 5 years ago. It was when I was going through my divorce, and I was like, "Who am I? And what am I?" And I was like, even though I had gotten sober, which was the first step in like not living compartmentalized,
Yep.
you know. And I think that, what did you call it? Did you say compartmentalized, or did you say you were? Is
Yeah.
that what you used
Yeah.
earlier? Okay.
Mhm.
So, but that concept that I'm living two lives, or dualities, and I was probably living eight lives. The thing is, I wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong. I'd given up on drugs and alcohol and all the like really obviously external bad things, but I really was all these different people. And my journey in the last 5 years has been to like go back to like really embracing it, getting to know my inner child, which through the work I've realized is an astronaut, inventor, cowboy, TV preacher. So that's who I am. And today I own it. And it's funny
Yeah.
because all those things are kind of why I love to do what I'm doing and all this. But that weird kid is
Yeah.
actually the secret to tapping into the passion and getting unstuck as an adult. So
Yep.
it's interesting you said roots, because I truly believe that passion is tied to that. I think purpose for me is about, okay, how am I helping other people? Like, how are you helping the culture in your business, and how are you getting out there and doing something that's for others, that especially if I'm not going to make any money off of it or any kind of direct compensation. Those are the things that I think helping others is purpose. But I have to have that passion too, because I'll burn out and
Mhm.
I won't continue to be inspired. So I love that. And so I think you and we're more alike than I even realized. Kind of like the sister brother thing
There you go.
going on. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah.
It's been really nice having you on, and you're an inspiration to me. And I am so excited that we're on a similar journey at the same time. I can't wait to see what happens next with you. And I know you're on a lot of like major social medias. Your book's not out yet, but we can keep. Where can we kind of keep an eye on you and figure out where to get the book when it comes out?
Yeah, sure. So you can everything that I do is on my website. So kerrysiggins.com. And LinkedIn is my most used platform just because everything that I do is around leadership. And so that's the best. But I'm trying to like make Instagram and TikTok work for me. And I'm having a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. Like I even bought like this like little fancy
TikTok?
I have a TikTok
What
account.
is
I
that?
created one.
What is
This
that?
is a setup to be able to record on your iPhone with a speaker
Okay.
and a light. And so you can make really great videos for TikTok and Instagram. And they have a great editing site that does all of like it puts all your media on it, like your logo, and does
Really
captions really well. And so I literally bought this because I said, I'm going to figure out how to do more videos
interesting.
for TikTok and Instagram
Gosh,
and get better
look
at
at
it, even
you.
though I feel like I'm way too old for it, but I'm
We
figuring it
are
out.
both too old for that, but I don't think we have a choice.
No,
We
I'm
kind of
figuring it
have to
out.
do it.
Yeah.
I was hoping I could just stop at Instagram. I have not given into the TikTok thing yet, but I'm sure it's coming.
Yes.
It's like it
Well,
sucks for
I'm
everybody.
working on it. I'm working on it and I'm creating, I think, really fun little great videos. I like follow a couple people on Instagram who inspire me, like Mel Robbins and Rachel Cruz. And so I'm like, if they can do it,
Mhm.
I can do it. And
Yeah, yeah,
so
exactly.
I bought that
That's what I
little
need to do. I need to get on. I haven't
yeah,
even really gone on TikTok much. My wife got into it, and we were doing these videos with the family where
yeah.
like people start appearing, and you do these little chops. It's like, oh god, you know.
You don't have to do that.
We for a week, my wife was going to be like big in TikTok.
And then she's like,
So and
this
we
is too much
now,
work.
yeah, this is ridiculous. I didn't know it was going to be this hard. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So anyway, but that's awesome. Well, everybody can follow you at kerrysiggins.com, and then all the major medias, and then of
Yep.
course your
Yeah.
book
And
is going
everything
to be
I'm under is
published
Carrie.
everywhere soon.
Yep. Everything is Kerry Siggins. So it's easy to find me. You can't not find me.
Okay, and now even on TikTok. So, Well, all right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I can't wait to get to talk to you more. I think I'm going to be on your show soon, so that'll be fun.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for
All
having me.
right.
It's fun.
You got it. Talk to you soon.
Bye, Frankie.